How's it going, everyone? My name is George, and this is my quick ranking of the seven comic book movies that I saw this year, from Zack Snyder's Justice League all the way to Spider Man No Way Home. So, movies came out again in 2021, most of them in theaters, some in streaming services, but for the most part, we got to see movies again, and we got to see comic book movies again. And we had gotten four MCU movies, one Sony Marvel movie, and two DC movies. So these are just my rankings from my least favorite to favorite. And just a heads up, I'm not going to be bashing these movies. I'll have like certain critiques that I'm going to offer. But for the most part, I really liked these movies that came out this year. So let's get started on this ranking. So in last place for 2021 is Eternals. And this is the only one I didn't do a review on this channel for. I didn't on my friend's site, The Movie Nerds. If you want, I'll put the link down below and you can check it out. I think I will do a review on Eternals when I rewatch it a second time at some point in 2022. Because I feel like this is a movie I have to rewatch again. Because on one hand, a lot of the highs in Eternals are some of the highest in the MCU, but some of the lows feel like some of the lowest. At times it feels too slow. The third act felt like it dragged on. On the other hand, there was a they went with a different tone in this movie, and I appreciate that they did something different instead of going with the Marvel formula. And the cinematography and costumes look great, and as I said in my review for the Movie Nerds, it seems like there was some inspiration from Zack Snyder movies that Chloe Zhao used, and I appreciated that. And for the most part, the characters, I did enjoy the characters. But at the same time, as far as the rest of these movies that have potential for sequels, a sequel to Eternals is the one that I'm least anticipating, and there's been no word on a sequel for Eternals as of yet. So who knows what the future is for this. Honestly, this could have worked out better as a Disney Plus show. But I still like the movie, and I'll do a review on it for this channel when I rewatch it to give a much more updated thoughts on it. So the next movie on this list is going to be Venom Let There Be Carnage. Now, this was kind of a tie between this and Black Widow because when this first came out, I did enjoy it a little bit more than Black Widow. But I feel like the movie that has more lingering effects was kind of Black Widow. Like, I felt like Black Widow was just a little bit better. But I still enjoy this movie. Tom Hardy was great as Venom, as always. I think Woody Harrelson did a great job as Cletus Cassidy and Carnage. And the action was great. On the other hand, it felt like this movie should have been longer than it was. I felt like there was more room for more action. It felt like the middle act kind of held the film back at times while the first and third act were great. But I prefer this over the first Venom. I know some people will say the first Venom is better, but this is the one where I can rewatch many times because despite the small amount of time it's well paced. It feels like they did cover everything. It's not like they missed out on stuff, but it's like you want to see more action is what I'm getting at. So the next film is, as I mentioned, Black Widow, slightly above Venom Let There Be Carnage, a movie that should have came out in either 2016, 2017, or 2018. It's a few years too late. And on one hand, I like the performances from Florence Pugh and Scarlett Johansson. I think Florence Pugh as Yelena is a great addition to the MCU, and she's one of my favorite new characters so far. And I like this how serious this film and like the kind of stuff it's touching upon in this film, how they handle it. But at the same time, it feels like it's predictable because this happened like in between Civil War and Infinity War. Taskmaster was a huge disappointment. I'm hoping that they give a much better version of Taskmaster later on in the MCU, kind of like how we got a better version of the Mandarin in Shang-Chi this year. And sometimes the jokes landed, but sometimes they felt out of place. But all in all, I did enjoy Black Widow, and I enjoyed the addition of Florence Pugh as Yelena, as I said, in the MCU. And I'm glad that Scarlett Johansson at least finally got her solo Black Widow movie. I just wish it had come out years years ago and had a better villain. So we're gonna get to the fourth film, which is Shang-Chi, a film that was the biggest surprise of 2021 in my opinion. Now, on one hand, when it comes to solo movies in the MCU, basically it's becoming more crossover-ish. And Shang-Chi, despite having a few MCU characters from previous movies in the film, for the most part feels like a pure solo film. And I love that it was able to do that. I love that Tony Leung as the Mandarin was great. Simu Liu as Shang-Chi was awesome. I love the action. I love the special effect work. And like Eternals, I was unfamiliar with this brand going into it. I never read the Shang-Chi comics, and I don't think he was ever in a lot of the Marvel cartoons. But this is a character that I'm very, very much invested in, and it's like the Guardians of the Galaxy in it that it's an unknown property that I think is gonna be into the MCU for quite some time. It's gonna develop a huge fan base, and I'm glad that they're already greenlighting a Shang-Chi 2. I think it's gonna be great, and hopefully it continues a strong trend with this character. So, for third place, we got the Suicide Squad, James Gunn's DC movie. And this was the movie he got after he was fired from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, but then got rehired. And this shows James Gunn's strengths as a director, especially when it comes to comic book movies like this. Because you're taking characters that should be unlikable, that are jerks, that you shouldn't feel anything for, but yet by the end of the movie, you like these characters. I did not expect liking characters like Polka Dot Man, Ratcatcher 2, King Shark going into this movie. I didn't expect John Cena to give one of his best performances as the character of Peacemaker. Margot Robbie is still fantastic as Harley Quinn. Idris Elba as Bloodspot really added a lot. And just the themes of political corruption in this film, Starro and how that was handled. They did such a great job with this movie. I know this has become a bit of a debate as to, is this the best DCEU movie? Is this the worst DCEU movie? Did this save the DCEU? Did this doom the DCEU? No, I think this is great for the DCEU. Although I'm still confused as to what they're gonna do after this movie. This feels like a movie that can take place in any direction. But we're gonna get more into the DCEU when I get to my next movie, because we got two more movies left. And these are the movies that were my most anticipated movies of 2021, that lived up to the hype and actually exceeded expectations, that I focused a lot on my channel so far in this first year that I've done YouTube. And it was kind of, and it might be a little tough to pick which one's your favorite, but after rewatching both of them recently, and one like is still great, but it's kind of still where it is, while the other one basically got a lot better with a second viewing. So in second place, the one that is still great, that I still love, but is number two, is Zack Snyder's Justice League. The Snyder Cut finally came out. It was the first video I did when the Snyder Cut was announced. And as a fan of Zack's, who loved Man of Steel, who likes BVS despite the problems people had with that movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League did not disappoint. This is a movie that does justice to characters that were done an injustice in the 2017 film. Ray Fisher's Cyborg really connected. Ben Affleck's Batman, man, got a redemption from his cringe performance in 2017. Well, not cringe, but his Josh Whedonized version. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman feels like the Wonder Woman that we liked in Batman vs Superman, the first Wonder Woman film. Steppenwolf actually feels like a villain And the arcs that these characters go through, the journeys that they go through, and how their character arcs are by the end of the film, the amazing soundtrack. This is a 4-hour movie, and yet I was never bored in these 4 hours. In fact, by the time the film was done, it didn't even feel like 4 hours went by. And I know the last couple months there's been the huge debate. Well, it's been the past year, but it's gotten really rough the last couple of months, the whole restore the Snyderverse thing. And would I like to see more of this? Absolutely, because this film finally is what we wanted to see from the DCEU. But at the same time, a lot's happened, and I know Zach drops his little Easter eggs, and there's a lot of hope. But at the same time, outside the merger, Warner Brothers just seems like they're trying to move on. If it happens, I will be very excited. It's not something I'm going to be touching upon this channel anymore, but this is more focused on celebrating the fact that we got this movie, because this movie should have came out in 2017. Maybe not the 4-hour version, but at least like a longer, better version that had the right balance of not just dark, epic moments, but also the humor. The humor in this film is actually funnier than the humor in the Josh Whedon movie. So, Zack Snyder's Justice League, after rewatching it, is the king of the DCEU. It's my second favorite comic book movie of the year, but there is one that is superior, and that is Spider-Man No Way Home. The movie that I made many videos about during this year. The movie that was probably one of, if not one of the few movies that I've gone to the theater twice to see, and it got a lot better the second time I saw it. And I can finally say it. Spoilers, whatever. Seeing Toby and Andrew again was awesome. Seeing the villains, Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, Jamie Foxx's Electro, was insane. Tom Holland gave his best performance as Spider-Man. You also see the performance of all these other characters, Zendaya as MJ, Jacob Batalon as Ned, and what starts as like, you think, is this going to be like the other movies in the Spider-Man home trilogy? But as the film goes through, it's going through that darker, more emotional tone. And I'm not saying it's as good as this certain comic book movie, but at times it reminded me of The Dark Knight when it comes to the fact that you had a villain in Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin that was pushing the hero to the limit where he wants to where he's thinking of breaking his own code, or he's pushing the hero to break his code, where by the end of the movie the hero defeated the villains and saved the day, but at a cost, because now Spider-Man does not have his happy ending. I mean, I know we got another trilogy coming out, but despite everything that's happened, it feels like Peter Parker did not win, and it's a rarity to see that in movies nowadays. And it just shows that John Watts, despite some of the criticisms he had gotten from the previous two films, actually understands Spider-Man. And as far as the Spider-Man performances go, even though my personal favorite is still Tobey Maguire because I grew up with Tobey and I've seen his movies the most, it's really hard to pick who's the best one, because I think all three of them have just done an amazing job in these movies that they've been in. Because this wasn't just a conclusion to the home Spider-Man trilogy. This was basically a celebration of almost 20 years of Spider-Man movies, and they did it right. This film could have easily messed up. This could have blew up in Sony and Marvel's face with the time it took to get this movie, the deadlines that they were trying to meet, trying to get all these people to return, and they nailed it. They got it done right. And I'm looking forward to what they're going to do in the future. Could we see an Amazing Spider-Man 3? What's going to happen with Tom Holland's Spider-Man after everything that he went through in this film? Like, what's the plan going to be? But yes, this film is not just one of my top 3 favorite Spider-Man movies of all time. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time, but it's also one of my top 2 favorite MCU movies of all time. And it comes in at number 1 as my favorite comic book movie of the year. And those are my thoughts on the comic book movies that we got this year. What are your thoughts on these movies? What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? What movie do you need to rewatch to make it official? I feel like Eternals is the one that my opinion has not been solidified. Not just because it's the only one I haven't gotten a chance to rewatch, but I feel like because there's something in there that I just want to touch upon that I need to like re-examine because it's such a mixed movie. But regardless of that, what'd you think about these movies? Comment below and let me know. And if you want to get more thoughts on these movies, well, want to hear more thoughts on how I feel about these movies, I'll put the links to my reviews down below, including my Eternals review that I did for the Movie Nerds. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share this with someone that saw all these comic book movies. And I hope to see you guys real soon. I did take a little break after covering all these Spider-Man movies on my channel. And I'll be doing another Spider-Man related video on the future of Spider-Man in the MCU. And that's going to be more focused on the Spider-Man solo films, not crossover films. But I hope to do that real soon. I hope you guys have a happy new year. I'm glad that we got movies again. I know we're still getting delays. I know COVID's still around. But we're starting to get there. We got these movies out this year. And hopefully 2022 is another solid year for comic book movies. We got a lot to look forward to. We got some that we're a little hesitant about. I've been wanting to address a certain movie due to recent events. I'm kind of hesitant to. Maybe sometime in January I'll cover it. But in the meantime, take care, everyone.